Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It is Tuesday, January 17th, and we are the Investing Bros. We got a great show lined up for you guys, and we're going to be looking at the charts on Bitcoin today, talking more about what we discovered yesterday. And there is a very real possibility, a very real chance that we could see Bitcoin's price get above 25,000. And that would be super important because that level more than likely would imply that the bottom for Bitcoin is in. But make sure that we're aware that there's a couple things that need to play out before that happens. What is the probability of 25,000 actually happening anytime soon? We'll be talking about that and a lot more during the technical analysis section. Of course, though, we also have some news stories. So before I mention those, I'm going to introduce my co-host, T-Shroom. How are you doing this morning, T-Shroom?
I'm doing really well. Too blessed to be stressed, baby.
Yeah. Is my audio off? It sounds weird in my ears.
No.
My ears.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah.
Let us know if for some reason something went weird this morning. We had some things unplugged last night, and then we were plugging them back in this morning.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anyone say can't hear you, so that's always a good sign. T-Shroom, do you have before we jump into some more details about what people can expect on this show, do you have a quote of the day for today, or is today
I do.
You do? All right. Well, I am ready for it.
Absolutely. And that quote of the day is this from Queen Elizabeth II. May she rest in peace. She said, "I have to be seen to be believed." Perhaps a veiled opinion on the whole Meghan and Harry situation from T-Shroom.
What is the veil?
It's a very thick veil.
I have no idea where you'd be going with that. Very interesting. Very interesting.
But there she is, the Queen of England.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. She was a great queen.
She did create some really good memes.
Have you been following the Harry and Meghan?
Oh, heck no. I mean, I'm aware that there's controversy and drama, and there's the side that says that they're being hated on. There's another side that says they're being dramatic. So I don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore.
Gotcha.
Yeah. What do you have a side in that?
I do. Well, Tim Dillon had a really, if you know who Tim Dillon is, he's a comedian. He has a podcast. His take was so freaking good, man. It's just, he just kept going back and forth from like, Meghan is the worst person to like, but I don't care because she's a winner. She won at the end of the day. And it's just really good. If you have time, go check out Tim Dillon's podcast. It's really, really funny.
I might have time coming up, but I think there's a lot of other things I should do with my time than listen to.
I agree.
British. I mean, I don't know. Shout out to all of our friends from the UK. But I feel like even some people in the UK don't necessarily follow that drama. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. But right now it is. It's the biggest thing in the media is Meghan and Harry.
Yeah. Well, let's jump back. What are some headlines we're going to be talking about today? Let's jump back into some crypto today. What do we got for stories?
Wait, are you telling me that this show is not about British pop culture? I thought that
we committed very early on in the show that we would keep British pop culture to less than 1% of our content.
And we are meeting that quota, folks.
Boom.
FTT surges 48% on bankrupt tokens rise. And there's a lot more to that story. We're going to be diving into that. And also back in black. Bitcoin is back in the black for the average holder of Bitcoin. Binance Coin's 22nd quarterly burn removes 2 million BNB tokens, so big burn over at Binance. Cardano's Djed stablecoin launch in mainnet is near. That's a big one. That could be big development story there for Cardano. Davos 2023 is right now. It's going on. We're going to be hearing headlines from it. I know everybody's super excited for Davos and the World Economic Forum. Huge fans over there of those guys, right, Tim?
No.
Hopefully you sense the sarcasm there. Sometimes people tell me that my sarcasm is, again, too thickly veiled, I should say. Bank of America says CBDCs are in the future of money and payments. And there's a lot of CBDC headlines out there. We're not going to bring them all to you today, but definitely there is a big media cycle right now for CBDCs around the globe. And then finally, Bloomberg analyst says Bitcoin bottoming out like 2018 amid unprecedented macro climate. And today, the stock markets are open after our awesome MLK Jr. Day yesterday. So we'll be covering those stock markets for sure. And we will be deciding which way the market's going to go for the rest of the year. Potentially up, potentially down. Tim, what do you think about those headlines?
I love it. I also love the comment that Brad Geidel said about this, and I know it's a typo, but I want to read it the way it was written.
Do it.
At T-Shroom, suck a professional. Okay, I thought I was going to say it out. Suck a professional. Seriously made for this. Good stuff. P.S. Thanks for bringing the excitement. I'm pretty sure he meant such a professional, but out of context. I didn't know what he was going for there. Thank you so much, Brad. I agree, though. He is such a professional, and I am not, because I decided to make that joke and read that line. Let's keep going on, guys. It's gonna be a great show. At the end, stay tuned. I promised you guys yesterday we'd give you guys an update on what's happening with Patreon, and it is not ready to be launched yet. We want to make sure when we launch that and we give you guys options to be a part of the team, that you guys get everything that you pay for. But stay tuned to the end of the show. We'll let you guys know more about what's happening there. Also, in case you guys want, we're about to jump in and engage with chat for a second, but in case you are joining us for the first time in about a week or so, we are now monetized. YouTube sped us along through that journey very quickly. So if you want to be able to support the channel, support the guys here and the content we produce, you got super chats now available for you guys. Make sure to leave us some messages there. But let's go ahead and see who is here, and then we'll jump in and get onto these charts with Bitcoin. Starting off with our first person in chat, Mr. J, saying, "Good morning, guys." It's impressive when he beats T. Schumer or myself, because of course we're the ones uploading the video. So when we upload it, we just got to switch the account, sign and do it. So Mr. J was just sitting by his computer, probably just constantly hitting that refresh button,
just sniping
on the Investing Bros page. So shout out to Mr. J. That takes a lot. CBD Suddy is here. He was the second one in here, so shout out to him as well. We also have Trevor S, Mr. B, Jose. Again, maybe I said this correctly and I forgot already. Menyavar. I don't know. There's that J. I'm pretty sure is silent.
Menyavar.
Speaking, Menyavar, maybe. Mr. Bitcoin is here. Let's see who else. Crypto Mini Bike, Yar Navarro, Brad Geidel, Jonas Thalen, Gia S is also here.
Gia S.
Justin Eubanks. Who else we got? Brian D, Eric Wallen, Al Bundles. Servando Estrada. Saying, "Good morning, bros." I do have to read this one. Ninja Glock says, "Tim, I assume you grew up in Southwest VA since you are a big fan of Virginia Tech." It depends on what your definition of grow up. I was born in Christiansburg.
Tim never grew up.
And in fact, we saw this because the other day with the bank, we had to get my Social Security card out. It still has the address that my family lived in when I was born in Christiansburg, Virginia. My parents went to Tech. I was there for a couple of years and then moved down to Tampa, where I did most of my growing up. But I'm a diehard Virginia Tech fan. Would love to live closer to there someday, but we'll see. We'll see what life does. Let's call it Seek and Hunt is here. That's a good name. Crypto JMP, Justin Eubanks again. Let's see. Joker's Wild, Joe Watkins, Big Easy, Luigi Fibonacci. Tom Wilkes is in chat. Shout out to Tom Wilkes. Ooh, that's a hard one. Isidro Ula? There's no way. But they said Buenos Dias from Mexico.
I love that we have such an international
correctly.
Audience, because it makes Tim's job so hard.
It is, but I love it. Shannon Sharp is here, one of our moderators. Shout out to Shannon. I see Shannon's name all the time when she's able to join later. I think she doesn't always join in the beginning, but shout out to Shannon. So glad to see you here in the beginning. Tyler Main. Max PP. Adam Delgado. Yeah. I think I actually got everyone's name in. A Mellow Fellow and DJ Rolling Rick. Andy D. Elaine Loftus. There we go. I think I got everybody's name. If I did not say your name for some weird reason, that does not mean we don't love you. Shout out to all of you guys. We got 73 people watching right now with only 43 likes. That means 30 of you at least have not smashed that like button. Go ahead and do so. We're going to jump in to our content. And again, if you did just join, make sure you stay tuned to the end of the show, because we're going to be talking more about that Patreon and Discord that we have coming very, very soon. And before I go there, let's let these last couple names. Tatted Grizzly and Steve Shrum also are here. But T-Shirt, why don't you go ahead and go over to my chart, and we're going to dive into this. We're on a little pump this morning, up to 21,300 as we are shooting this. But we discussed this yesterday, and if you guys didn't watch the show, I'm going to try to regroup some of this, and then we're going to talk more about it. I still believe that we're going to have a little bit of a dip. I still believe that we're a little overextended. Would be open to being wrong. Very, very open to it. However, there's a lot of very interesting things potentially saying that we could be on Bitcoin going north of $25,000. Let's start off, before I even get into the actual technicals and explain that, let me take off this just so we can get a good appreciation of what this would look like should we go above $25,000. So keep in mind this right here, this peak right here, that's $25,000 that we hit back here in August of 2022. We mentioned this yesterday, but ever since the peak in 2021, the all-time high of 69,000, we have been setting lower highs, lower lows. And yes, it does look like we're kind of working on this little bottoming out pattern where we've been kind of more, on the linear. Now I'm going to have to get rid of my lines. I'm going to bring my lines back. On the linear chart, you could have said a long time ago that we broke resistance. On the log chart, it looks like we just are touching it here very soon. But we, after going down very, very heavily, have started to move sideways. The question, though, is the bottom in, though? Let me take these back off so we can get an appreciation for this. Is the bottom in? At the moment, nobody could say with certainty, and the truth is no matter where we go, you really couldn't say with 100% certainty the bottom is in. But you could start to use some probabilities. And right now, I would not necessarily give us a high probability that the bottom is not in. I still believe there's a decent chance where we're currently sitting, if we get some bearish pressure in, we absolutely could go back below 15,000. I think it's like 600, but maybe it's 450, 1,500, 500. I believe we could. I think we could even go down towards 14,000, maybe even drop a little below it. However, we at the moment are matching a little peak here at 21,000, but if we could get back above 25, like the ones that I think are significant, of course, 69,000. I think right here at 48,000 is very significant. I even think that potentially the one right here around 32, but definitely the one at 25. Not that 21's not important, but it's nowhere near as important as 25. Getting back above 25,000 and setting a higher high, even if we drop back down to 20,000 or 19,000, as long as we drop back down instead of higher low than 15,500, we then would be setting higher lows, and that would be the switch. Right now, we talk about we talk about main movers, we talk about secondary movers and tertiary movers. Right now, our main trend is still bearish because we're still setting lower highs and lower lows. The minute we can shift and start setting higher highs and higher lows, that would then shift us into a place of, again, nothing's 100%. Something absolutely catastrophic could happen, setting us back down below $15,000. But I would move the probabilities up into the 80s, if not 90s, at the bottom for Bitcoin is in. And then you start this little range. And I think if I start to draw, I have to bring this back. We could start a little range. If we make it above 25,000, maybe we end up dropping back down towards 20,000, and then we move a little to the upside, and then we come back down here, and we start to set this higher high, higher low thing. That's what we want to see Bitcoin do. That would be the beginning of a next bull run. And of course, these dips, as long as we stay above here, that would count as higher highs, higher lows. Not necessarily saying that's going to happen, but I wanted to set the stage for why 25,000 is so important for Bitcoin to conquer and to get above and stay above for a little bit of time. And it's because that would be the sign to anyone out there, hey, if you still have dry powder and you're waiting for a new low, it might be time to start rethinking what levels you're looking at to execute that dry powder instead of waiting for 14,000 or lower. So let's go ahead. With that being said, now we have we kind of have the foundation laid for today's technical analysis on Bitcoin. Let's jump in and look at what is happening. Let's start with a couple of reasons why potentially we could be getting above 25,000. The first being that we just broke above our falling wedge pattern here that we've been in ever since back in June. Now, you guys know we've been talking about this for a while, but if you are new here, we're so glad to have you here. When you're looking at a falling wedge pattern, the way you predict a breakout is you start with the opening of that falling wedge. So the first time we have support, first time we have resistance, you then move that line over to your breakout point. Let's just go ahead and, for right now, let's pretend we broke out right here and we're not going to come back down and touch this level of resistance, which I think is probably very likely. That right there gives us a prediction of $26,100, give or take. It depends on exact levels where you drew it, but that's going to put us above 25,000. So that's one reason to believe that very much Bitcoin could be getting above those levels. Another, though, that is starting to form, and this is why I told you guys, I think that we might actually drop first, but that is completely okay, is we have the makings right now of an inverse head and shoulders pattern. What we have is we have this very clean looking left shoulder over here, a very nice looking head. And a lot of people, when you're looking at the fact that we're sitting overextended on RSI, overextended on the Luxago oscillator, we have sell signals on the Luxago. I don't even need to pull them up to show you guys that. We've been talking about that for a while, but we got sell signals. A lot of people are saying, hey, we're a little overbought at the moment. Might be time to cool down. Well, guess why that would not be the worst thing in the world? Because more than likely, when we get this little sell order, we have our bearish divergences on smaller charts. You could see the price start to keel down and look for the next level of support. Well, where's next level of support? Probably somewhere down here south of $20,000, somewhere in the mid 19,000s, maybe even as low as 19,000 itself. Former support levels we had back earlier last year in 2022, and then we start to rally, setting up our bullish divergence. Well, what does this now look like, everybody? This is what we would call a inverse head and shoulders pattern. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. You also could call it a cup and handle formation, and we'll talk about that because that could be part of what keeps us below 25,000. But let's just stop right here and say this being a very realistic expectation for price action. Let me even pull up the RSI and show you guys why those levels would be significant, because more than likely with these levels right here on the RSI, it would not be very hard to drop our RSI all the way back down into the relative low numbers, and then we start to rally here and getting even above $25,000 or 26. Maybe potentially we end up setting bearish diversions there down the road, and then it gives us reason why we're going to hit 26 and potentially come back down to 20 to set a new low. But of course, that's a higher high, higher low. This is very intriguing to watch, because now let's move over to what an inverse head and shoulders pattern would bring us with price predictions. Go back here. I don't want to draw what I don't want. Let's go ahead and set our neckline first of all. And it looks like we're setting a pretty clean flat level neckline right there at 21,400. We have wicks there that came back in November, and of course wicks that have happened over the last couple of days right here at 21,100. We're going to start with that, or 21,400, excuse me. We're going to start with that level. The reason why it's significant that that's flat is because if that wasn't necessarily at least close to being flat, that would discredit our cup and handle formation. But let's start with the inverse head and shoulders, going from the bottom of our head back here, the bottom of the entire bear market we've had up to date in November, up to that neckline and extrapolating over to a breakout point, which doesn't matter where I put it because that's a flat level. This gives us an extremely bullish prediction all the way up at 27,000, give or take 500. A little higher than our falling wedge pattern saying 26, but both of them have something in common, and that is they go above $25,000. That would be phenomenal. So we got two different things showing us that that's absolutely possible, as well as that if you were to go down to the 4-hourly chart, we also have the makings where we just broke out of a bull pennant. And so let me go ahead and get rid of my drawings here so you guys can see this a little clearer. This happened here. Actually, the best way to put this would probably even be from like an hourly chart. We have been kind of sitting here wrestling with this support level. Right now, we just broke back above it. So this is very bullish, but let's go ahead and extrapolate that prediction. Let's go back out to the 4-hourly chart where we can see it a little better. Going down to the bottom of our flagpole, up to the peak, and then moving that over to our breakout point. Boom, right here. This would give us a price prediction, not quite to it, but right below at about 24,800. We'll see how that develops. But right now we got three different ones calling for close to, if not around, $25,000. But let's regroup now for a second, because even though the whole point of this video was saying this would be phenomenal, and I set up the platform and the foundations of the significance of $25,000, I have to be honest with you guys. I still think there's a very good chance that that does not happen. In fact, even though I still think that we're going to see the price action do what I just drew, come back down to this $19,000 region and then move to the upside, I think that more realistically, and this is something that technical analysts have to look at, you have the very bullish prediction, the very aggressive prediction of 27,000 using the inverse head and shoulders pattern. But as I mentioned before, this is also a cup and handle formation. Well, cup and handle formations, you don't use the same aggressive bullish breakout prediction. You actually only use the length of our little handle right here. So this is about half the distance of what the bullish breakout for inverse head and shoulders is, and this gives us a prediction of 23,800, 23, yeah, give or take. We talked about that yesterday. I do think that we have a little higher to go, and I think it's really good that we end up setting and breaking a new high over 21,000. I don't know, though, that 23,800 is enough to say that the bull market's ready and that there's no way we end up going back down to new lows around 14,000. I was even reading an article this morning. I don't know if we're covering it here because I don't know if T-Shroom saw it. I kind of read it literally about 10 minutes before we went live. But it was talking about how, yes, we're seeing whales purchase. In case you guys are wondering, we've seen whales purchase over $7 billion of Bitcoin within the last couple of weeks, I believe. We've seen hundreds let's see. So I said 7 billion Bitcoin. I didn't mean 7 billion. Maybe $7 billion worth of Bitcoin, several 100,000 Bitcoins themselves. And that's good. You love to see whales and smart money purchasing, but what you're not necessarily seeing is large institutional money. Also, you're seeing this kind of play out almost like they're going to play, based off what Wyckoff talks about, they're playing this as if they want to get retail investors out. This is a perfect push to set up signs like this inverse head and shoulders pattern, to have this nice little rally that FOMO investors who don't necessarily pay attention to charts, who don't necessarily pay attention to macroeconomic things going on, they're going to see this and read headlines that are giving these predictions of $27,000. They're giving these predictions of the bottom being in, and they're just going to say, all right, it's time to FOMO in. And in reality, this is a great chance for some whales to take some profit up at these levels, somewhere between 21,000 and 23,000, take some profit, and then push the price back down to new levels where they can gobble up more. Remember, yes, right now we have a bullish outlook happening on our the Fed meetings. It does look like we might even potentially see a 0 interest rate hike this next meeting. I don't think that's going to happen. I think 25 is still happening, but the prediction tool is saying we have over a 30% chance of 0. At least the bettors are saying there's a good chance that there's a 0 interest rate hike. I'm not buying all this. I think that this is all kind of storing together, giving a lot of hopium, giving a lot of momentum to space for retail investors to jump in. And in reality, what's going to end up happening is we're going to get our heart broken once again. The people that have been made silent, I've seen it on Twitter a lot recently. People are shouting out all the Bitcoin bears and saying, why aren't you guys being very loud? Where'd you guys go? Well, guess what? Just because everything looks bullish right now does not mean that they're wrong. In the same way, I mean, how long have bulls been saying, oh, the bottom's in, the bottom's in, the bottom's in, then we came back down and set a new low? There's this thing that goes back and forth. Whoever is winning in the moment thinks that they're automatically right and the other side is wrong. Sometimes you can have both sides be right. Sometimes both bears and bulls can be right in the same moment, where these bears who are still believing the bottom's not in, they're not necessarily wrong just yet. They're just not winning in this moment. So anyone who is superly bullish, keep your head calm, keep your head down, because there's nothing on this chart right now that's saying that the bottom 100% is in. But that level for me, this is what I'm looking at as an investor, trying to be as evenly keeled as possible. I think bottoms are still possible. I think we could go lower, but if we get above 25,000, that for me is the sign that is saying, all right, I think the bottom's in. Now I'm looking with my dry powder to potentially, if we see a price go down to 20,000, that's when I'm going to be executing a lot of it. T-Shroom, do you have a thought there?
You know, you mentioned something that really pulled on my heartstrings, which is that we're going to get our heart broken by Bitcoin. If you go back to your Bitcoin chart, what is the chances that our hearts get broken right around February, right around Valentine's Day?
I didn't think about that.
That's what I'm thinking.
That would crush.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe we get asked out to a fancy dinner.
Yeah.
You know, hopes for 25K, maybe even 30K, and then we get stood up and we go back down to 17, push 16. Listen, guys, if that happens, I'm happy, because I feel like I didn't get enough now. You know, I have the fear of missing out now. Like, oh, it can go back up, right? You know, the little baby inside of us just can't believe sometimes. But if we get stood up, it's going to break a lot of hearts.
You know, another thing that we need to be kind of looking at here, and not going on the chart, but just let's think through some things that people are responding to right now that could change. A lot of this rally is responding to the lower inflation, is responding to the potential that we might see the Fed get a little less hawkish, but even the job report. So I know some people thought it was going to be bearish. Guess what? Traditionally, when you see a good job report, after all the pain we've seen, that's actually bullish for markets. It shows the strength of the economy. Here's what I'm waiting on, though. Those numbers reflected what we saw in December. Well, guess what was still happening in December? Holiday jobs.
Mm-hmm.
There still were people having temporary jobs. The other thing is oil prices have been dropping, but we've talked about that on this channel, that we do see signs of potentially oil bouncing back up, especially when you're looking at the Ukraine-Russia ordeal, which is one of the biggest factors in oil prices right now. There have been some things that have happened more recently that tension isn't getting weaker, the tension's actually getting stronger, and if that happens and we see a potentially longer period of time for that war going on, that would raise oil prices. So we just saw bullish action happen because we saw a low inflation number with oil prices being low, with job market looking good, and even food. I mean, that CPI number didn't give us indications of what was happening with egg prices. I'm curious to see what happens in February when we look at what happened in January when it comes to food. This is something we talked about last year, that you're not going to see the price of food be affected by these economic problems until about a year afterwards, because the farmers who are feeding their cows and feeding their chickens and planting their crops, those things take a long time to come to market, and we won't see that priced in until a year after the really bad things happen. Similar to, we didn't see inflation get really bad right at the moment that we were sending out all those checks for the pandemic, but it took some time before they baked in, and then our inflation shot up. Same thing with these inflation numbers and the things that we just saw. Don't necessarily say, oh, we're sitting in the clear because December's numbers look clean. There's a lot of things at play that could have thrown off the December numbers to make them look more favorable than they actually are, and our economy could be actually looking at a lot worse numbers coming up very soon. And again, that's going to be right around there in February, Mark. I've predicted, I think if we end up going down, it's towards the end of quarter one, and we start a new rally here quarter two. But yeah, T-Shroom, that's all I got for Bitcoin TA. We're going to be doing some Cardano TA based off of some big news this afternoon. So make sure, if you are looking forward to some Cardano TA, to watch today at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But T-Shroom, I'm going to throw it over to you, and we can start jumping into some stories, or you can give your take on Bitcoin, or we can go wherever you want to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get into a couple of different things here. I'll stay on Bitcoin. Let's go over here to, this is the Fear and the Greed Index. And as you can see, we've actually had an improvement even from yesterday. So the Fear and Greed Index has now printed for the first time in a long time neutral. And we'll go down to the charts here and show you exactly how long it has been since it's been in the neutral range. And really, it hasn't been in the neutral range since back here. And goodness gracious, that's small print. April. And we did talk about this yesterday, but I'm pointing it out again because it's so important that, we have gone neutral. This is big. This is very, very encouraging, very bullish, and it will be nice to see this trend continue. So that's really, really good. Moving into the CME price, the CME Fed hike rate indicator tool. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page. You can see 31% likelihood of that's a zero rate hike, meaning that's close to a pivot. It's not quite a pivot. We're not going into cuts quite yet, but that's pretty darn good. I like to see that. And then we'll also look today. We talked about this yesterday. Let's get into the inflation rates over from Europe. I don't know if the EU one, it looks like the EU one has not printed yet, but the German one has. So as you can see here, inflation met the forecast. The year-over-year inflation for Germany met the forecast and is down from 10% down to 8.6. So that bodes well for Europe. And of course, we're not Europe. The United States is not Europe. Jerome Powell probably, on the whole, does not care at all about the German inflation rate. But this is generally positive, especially for our German viewers out there. Dankeschön. That means thank you, right? Dankeschön. Anyway.
Donkey is thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just thank you for being alive. But here's the big one. Okay. So the European ones, maybe that's tomorrow. The European inflation. Yeah. European inflation is tomorrow and it's forecasted for 5.2. Okay. But put to today at 2200 hours, we will be getting, which is much later in the day. That's actually in the nighttime, right? That's like 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. We'll be getting.
You're in the military. How did you not know what 2200 is?
I may be in the military, but I'm not the brightest.
Aren't you supposed to be like an officer?
Okay, Tim. We'll talk about that after the stream. I'm deeply, deeply offended that you would say that about a future military officer. I'm in training. I'm in training, and this is part of the training.
They haven't done clocks yet. Clocks is next.
Clocks
drill.
Is the next drill. Exactly.
Okay, good.
We're getting into how to tell time with our sergeants there. So if you're my sergeant, you're watching, you can give me a call after the stream. Don't call me right now. But yes, the Bank of Japan will be issuing their decision on the interest rate there what would you say, 10 o'clock. So very important to watch that. That could be, it's not going to impact American markets more than likely quite yet until the bond market digests this information. And we'll get into that a little bit probably tomorrow because to be honest with you guys, it's complicated stuff. And I personally can't get my head around it on my own, so I'll need to read some analysis, but I'll definitely bring that to you and tell you how that could potentially affect your portfolio. Well, so here's a little bit of a curious story here, guys. Check this out. So FTT surges 48% after bankrupt tokens also rise. FTT, you'll remember, as FTX's token. It's like BNB to Binance. And here's a quote. It says, there is not a single other place in the world you will find stocks of businesses that committed fraud and went bankrupt pump several 100%, while FTT still not delisted from Binance and 3xing from its lows. You wonder why regulators hate us. So that's a pretty good quote. Sums up pretty well. So and nobody knows why. Nobody knows why FTT is pumping right now, but or at least yesterday they didn't, and now we know why. So founders of bankrupt Three Arrows Capital have pitched new platform for crypto debt claims. Now, guys, we don't need to get into the details of this because you shouldn't be interested in this. I don't know who the heck would want to buy this, but anyway, debt claims are essentially buying these tokens like from FTT and Celsius and Luna. Those are still listed on some exchanges and they are still trading. And so the co-founders of failed cryptocurrency hedge fund Three Arrows Capital are now courting investors for a new venture that looks to capitalize on a growing list of bankruptcies in the space. Kyle Davies and Su Zhu are, this is not CZ, by the way, you might get confused, this is a different guy. Su Zhu are listed as founding members in a pitch deck obtained by CNBC for a distressed debt marketplace called GTX. I see you smiling over there, Tim. What's on your mind?
Why would they just the name, the way the name sounds? Why would they mix up Su Zhu? Because if they're reading it like they were reading it on your screen, very different letters going on.
Yeah, well, I don't know why, Tim, but I felt like it was important.
You were trying to be professional. I am. Yeah, my bad.
I don't want people to be led astray. If you do, you can not point things out and you can get away with that. But this article goes on to say they cited a clear need to unlock the claims market, one they value at $20 billion, and believe GTX, this is the platform they're going to roll out for these debt claims, could dominate within 2 or 3 months. GTX said in its pitch that once scaled, the platform could fill a power vacuum left by FTX within the crypto trading and move into the securities lending market. So these guys, Kyle Davies and not CZ, Su Zhu, are getting their hands dirty yet again. They didn't learn their lesson, and perhaps they got caught up in something that they didn't. They weren't responsible for the bankruptcy of Three Arrows Capital. But I'm tired of giving people the benefit of the doubt in crypto. To be honest, if you're this high up and you're a former executive of a bankrupt crypto hedge fund, you need to just take the sidelines for a bit. Go be a waiter at Conestoga's. What's a national chain? Longhorns. Yeah, not to be exactly Conestoga's CZ. So you just take a minute. Perform some self-care. Take some of that money that we know you hid, and go. Just go live in Costa Rica for a little while. Did Three Arrows
Capital hide money that we know of?
I'm just saying, the proverbial these crazy psychopathic rich guys. Of course, they're gonna squirrel some money away. Look at SBF. He's got all this bail money, and his parents got a bunch of real estate.
Yeah,
that's their MO. Is they scale these Ponzi schemes up. And I'm not saying Three Arrows Capital is a Ponzi, but they scale these businesses up. And they work with their accountants to get a little bit of money. And percentage wise, it's probably not that much, but they get a little bit of money down in the Cayman Islands where they happen to be registered. So all right. So anyway, that is definitely something to point out here. It's not going to really concern you and your profile, but what it does highlight is that the snakes in the grass of crypto, right? The Wild West industry of crypto, that we're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. They're not necessarily getting separated effectively. And I'm tired of giving people like Kyle Davies and Suzu the benefit of the doubt and just saying, oh, well, maybe they're good guys. They got caught up in a scheme. Not anymore. You've got to be Captain America now. You've got to be extremely trustworthy, and you've got to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed. You can't be from a bankrupt company and go work in the industry anymore. Well, you can, but you're not going to have my trust.
Yeah, I told him before. I'm going to give a devil's advocate take for a second.
Go for
it.
it.
But I want to preface by saying I'm not going to be investing in this. I'm not going to use them. I don't trust them. However, I do want to play devil's advocate because we're not talking about Sam Bankman-Fried, who literally purposely went out of his way to screw over his customers. And was just doing so much fraud, it wasn't even crazy. The biggest sin of these guys, the biggest problem that they did was they over-leveraged themselves.
Yeah.
That's what toppled Three Arrows Capital is they were over-leveraged in Terra Luna, and of course, when Terra Luna collapsed, they went downhill. The reason why I'm playing devil's advocate and saying, I'm not necessarily saying, I agree with you they should have taken more time, but you can't say these guys are absolutely blacklisted. You can't do anything because guess what? Every single exchange has a problem with overlisting. I think Coinbase and Binance actually have done a decent job of not doing it, but other ones. So you just look at banks in the history, like that's one of the biggest problems with companies is they over leverage themselves. Well, guess what? Some of the largest companies in the world got that way because they over leverage themselves. It is the greatest way to get big and the easiest way to fail. Their sin is that they over leverage themselves in Terra Luna, who, to be honest, obviously that name has been now corrupted, but at the time, only a month before the collapse, people were talking about Do Kwon as being like the next great guy. Like Luna was supposed to take over. People were like,
I remember
is
that.
it going to become the second or third greatest altcoin? He was talking about backing all of Luna with Bitcoin. People were in love with it. So my point is here, they chose the wrong horse, but everyone chooses a horse to rally behind.
Yeah.
And they just chose the wrong one. So I don't think that these guys are idiots. I think they're intelligent. But I agree, this is way too soon. And you're right. I won't invest in them, A, because it's too soon. And also I don't like any of those projects that they're trying to really pump up. Yeah. But also because like I want to invest wisely. And whether I think these guys are smart or not, the public persona is that they're not. Yeah. And so for those reasons, the masses won't go there. And when the masses don't go there, it's going to be one of those things that's like, all right, this just isn't going to ever get back to being a large exchange.
Yep. Well, if nothing else, crypto has been a very, very interesting story of the new American Wild West, the new global Wild West, and we're going to continue to cover it as such. And, the sheriff that's running it all, Gary Gensler, seems to have his head up his butt and not really know what he's doing. And meanwhile, there's all kinds of terrible fraud that's not being prosecuted effectively.
Gary Gensler, not to be confused with CZ, though, right?
Right, correct.
Okay, good.
So we'll move on, guys. But I do want to point something out really quickly before we do, which is the chat from Luigi Fibonacci. Luigi, we really appreciate these very thoughtful and specific questions on TA. Okay. And I don't want to discourage them. However, this live show we create a plan for it every morning. Tim has an amazing setup for what he believes is super important on the charts to bring you guys. And we will take questions, don't get me wrong. But what Luigi is asking is a perfect example. I don't know if you read it, but he's asking a very specific question about Fibonacci retracement on the ETH charts. This is the place for that, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the kind of stuff we're going to do in Patreon. We're going to be covering those specific TA questions, specific fundamental questions, because it's not a quick question. It's not a question that's easy to set up and answer. You kind of need to draw that out on the chart, and we weren't necessarily thinking about doing that. So long story short, Luigi, we're not trying to ignore you. It's not super compatible with our show today, but it is very compatible with what we're going to be rolling out on Patreon, and we're going to get to that and how you can sign up at the end of the show. Yeah. Moving back on into the headlines.
I will say, I want to answer very briefly because you're right. That would take a lot of time to show. In short, though, he's asking, do you think that we can get below 3,000? Leaving us all in disbelief. Anything is possible. I will tell you right now, if Bitcoin gets below 3K, there's some big problems, though, that would... I'm not saying Bitcoin would be over for sure, but a lot of things would have to happen to get us below 3,000 and Bitcoin still be very viable. That's more of a death to Bitcoin type of move, not a realistic drop.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, the opposite of death is life, and many investors now are actually how about that for a transition?
I love that.
And many investors now are feeling a breath of new life, a resurgency of air into their lungs. Because check this out, guys. According to Glassnode.com, the realized price of Bitcoin is now 19.7K, meaning this is where the average coin holders are priced in. This is what their average entry point is, meaning the market is starting to be back in black. Back in black. Such eloquent words stated and made famous by the metal/hard rock band AC/DC. And also you can see some other statistics here that CoinGlass has presented for us, which is the short-term holder realized price. This is less than 150 days. They are priced in at 18K, okay? And then long-term hodlers, like your boy, Tim and T Shroom, are at an average of 22.4K. I would say this is a pretty good summary of where I'm priced in.
I was going to say, that's actually
Tim?
pretty dead on where I am.
Yeah. So CoinGlass, that you can get a subscription with them. It's not cheap, but it is very useful, and their data does tend to be pretty spot on. And this, overall is just kind of, there's a lot more charts in this article, but, kind of asking the question, is Bitcoin back? That's a lot of what our thumbnail is about today. And, CoinGlass is certainly thinking that based on prices of where folks are priced in, where people's average entry, Bitcoin is back.
Wow.
So moving along to Binance. Binance's coins 22nd quarterly burn removes 2 million BNB tokens. We're not going to really get into this one too much, but just kind of remind you that there are very centralized projects out there, guys. And Binance is definitely the biggest one. As you can see here, Watcher.Guru reporting on that. And then also a little bit more statistics here on the previous burns. As you can see, the first burn, it burned 900,000 BNB, and then more in recent months, that's gotten into the millions. And so this is approximately 1.3% of the supply of BNB. And I also read that CZ, not to be confused with CZ, does want to have.
In this case, you want to confuse.
Yeah, you do. You do want to get the confused. So ultimately, just kind of pointing out here that the Binance is doing burns, and that is a thing. You may be new to crypto and not understand that. That's basically what the Fed does when they do rate cuts, right? They're sucking liquidity out of the market, and so there's an equivalency there. By no means should you think that no one in crypto is doing monetary policy. Crypto is full of monetary policy if the project is centralized, meaning it can be burned, and meaning that the nodes are maybe not as decentralized, meaning that Binance is doing a lot of the mining itself. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, Cardano's Djed stablecoin launch in mainnet is near. ADA contributor assumes. It's such a weak headline, but it is important. Based on positive developments in the life of algorithmic Cardano-based stablecoin, the enthusiast has suggested that its launch on the main network is imminent. So right around the corner, potentially. Now, Tim, Terra Luna was an algorithmic stablecoin, or was it Luna? I think it was Terra. But in any case, why do you know the tokenomics of why Djed's going to be different? Why it's okay? Because every algorithmic stablecoin that's been tried has sucked and ultimately led to a lot of people losing money. What do you think is going to be different about Djed?
I need to do way more research on it, but in a short term, a lot of other stablecoins. Okay, so we're talking about Terra, how much it was backed. If Terra was backed by US dollars, never would have been a problem. The problem was they started backing with some other things. They over leveraged. They didn't actually have everything that was there. Djed, run by the Cardano team, is going to be a lot more backed. It's going to, even though it's going to have a lot of things going on that would make you more money, it's not going to be one that you're at risk of going completely bankrupt. Like, it's going to be a lot harder based off security for it to go that way. So that's the short answer. Let's do more research on it, though.
Tim, that's the short answer, but it's also the right answer. So check it up. Well, sorry, I was setting you up more there for a quick answer, but that's okay. What's up with Djed? Well, the answer is that it's over collateralized. Most of these algorithmic stablecoins that came around and failed, they weren't even, I don't even think they were collateralized. They were just, algorithmically pegged to the dollar or the euro or whatever they were pegging to. And they just kind of thought that would work, and it failed, and they sucked, and everybody hates them, especially Luna. But yeah, so Djed is going to be different because it's going to be over collateralized to the tune of 400% over collateralized. which is pretty impressive. According to Jed's official website, it is currently worth the equivalent of 2.94 ADA with a supply of more than 600,000 tokens. And Cardano's native token ADA in turn equates to 35 cents, having reached this mark after rising 43% during January. So I think that's all to kind of point out the fact that, yeah, the Jed as of now, it's on the test net, but it is actually clocking in at $1.01. So it's over that, kind of reflecting that bias towards over collateralization.
Mm-hmm.
So something to point out there. That's right around the corner. Is that going to be bullish or bearish for Cardano, do you think?
Oh, it's going to be bullish because it's going to bring one more level of trustworthiness. And again, do you expect anything less than Cardano's team? Yes, they move slow, but they move with precision and dedication to security and to making sure that the people that are invested in their projects are not screwed over. So it's going to be one of those things. We had to wait a long time for it. I mean, almost a whole year ago, I remember being at Consensus and getting DJed hats, and I didn't get them, but like the other guys I was with got merch.
Yeah.
It wasn't even up and operating yet. They were just getting merch. It took a long time, but now that it's finally here, big things are coming.
Yeah, I remember when you came back from that and didn't have any merch for me. That was great. Well, moving over to
we weren't friends.
Oh, we were just coworkers.
Not to be confused with CZ, of course.
Not to be confused. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think we should continue to make that joke because it is very funny. Davos 2023 crypto is down, but not out. Davos, the World Economic Forum, we're going to be seeing a lot of news and headlines about that in the coming days because they always say something crazy about how they're going to take over the world and make everybody eat bugs and stuff, and that you're going to own nothing and you're going to love it. Do I think that the fear and the FUD around World Economic Forum is inflated? Yes. Could I potentially be wrong? Absolutely. They could do something crazy to the world and take over, but many have tried to take over the world and have failed. Let's move on. So essentially what this article is trying to encapsulate is that crypto has still spent money on trying to appeal to the world's richest and most powerful people who meet in Davos, Switzerland, and they talk about stuff and they plan to make the world eat bugs and things like that. And crypto has not given up. These are all the advertisements that crypto companies and projects have paid for to be there. And, hopefully the world's most powerful people will see that and say, hey, we have to integrate and legalize and not ban crypto in our country. And it'll be great and swell and all of that type of thing. So that's really what this article is about. There's a lot more to be said about it. But right now, usually with the Davos forum, we don't know anything until afterwards, or as journalists like CNBC are in there finding out what they're saying and talking about. And then it comes out and there's a headline and everybody reacts to it and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my take on the World Economic Forum. I know that there's a lot of people out there who think that they're Satan and they're a bunch of cultists and stuff like that.
There's some scary stuff for sure.
There is. I mean, they have said a lot of things that are just leave you scratching your head. Like, what are they thinking over there? A lot of depopulation type stuff. A lot of Thanos type memes coming out of that. So definitely going to be keeping our eye over there on the World Economic Forum headlines and the different sound bites coming out of that, to see what the heck is on their mind this round in Davos. So the last story we have here, and then I'll go to the market open very briefly, is Bloomberg analyst says Bitcoin bottoming out like a 2008 amid unprecedented macro climate. And I think that at this point, these thumbnails have to be AI generated. They're just so beautiful and vibrant and really, really cool. So in a new interview with Scott McGlone, he compares Bitcoin's recent rally to the 20,000 range to BC's bottom formation in 2018 at the 5,000 price. And he said, quote, "We're still pulling liquidity from the market on a global basis, an historical unprecedented basis for good reason. And if equities go higher, if risk assets go higher, this liquidity is more likely to retain constraint from central banks." So what I'm showing you is a chart. We see this potential island bottom develop around 20,000, the same way it did in 5,000 back in 2018. The big difference is that I show you,
I think you need to scroll up just a little bit.
What I show you in white is the federal fund futures back then. The Fed already started easing and we held the bottom and broke out higher. And then we had that issue in 2019. So this is exactly the chart that he's referring to here, McGlone. And as you can see, it is pretty spot on. So he goes on to say that this is the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq is at its. Oh, he's referencing another chart here. So we'll skip ahead, but ultimately, what this article here is encapsulating is the fact that Bitcoin may be back. We're seeing that theme kind of echoed throughout a lot of these stories, and people aren't selling. People are holding on to Bitcoin. We went over the charts, and overall, it is something that I think is starting to ring more and more true as the days go by, and Bitcoin does stay above 20,000. I tweeted out this morning, do you remember how crazy it was to think back to when Garrett Soloway predicted a $20,000 Bitcoin in mid-2021? Do you remember that, Tim?
I mean, a lot of people predicted things down low. So was it Garrett Soloway, one of the first ones that said 20,000?
Garrett Soloway. I remember watching a video, and my buddies had said that they had a lot of respect for him, and he was predicting.
Sorry, dropped my Dogecoin.
He was predicting a $20,000 Bitcoin. And at the time, it was like, above 65,000, and everybody was like, this guy is crazy. But he obviously was right. Let's move into our market open here.
Yeah.
And we definitely want to leave some time here at the end of the show to go over what our Patreon and our Discord setup is going to look like. But here we'll open with oil, and oil is higher. And from its recent lows here, it is up more than 11%, almost 12%, guys. So this is going to have an impact on the next inflation print. I think it's not going to be enough to have that print be bearish, but it is going to be, it is going to put some pressure on that. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping track of that and adjusting our portfolios accordingly. Natural gas seeing a bump here, and LuxAlgo has been predicting for a little while, at least on the daily chart. This is not the daily chart. It has been predicting for a little while now for a reversal in natural gas. And that is a big player in the energy mix for the United States and for Europe still. And there should be a reversal here in natural gas at some point. And today you are getting a bump up, but it's still trading within this range here, as you can see. And whether or not it can get up above that range and start to break out is yet to be seen and yet to be determined. Well, looking at the indexes here, we are well into 20 minutes of market trading here on the New York Stock Exchange. As you can see, the S&P, not much movement on any of the indexes, and the Dow leading the way down, if anything, but really, really modest movement this morning in the early minutes of the New York session. Crypto down, crypto up. As you can see, the reverse ETF here for Bitcoin down 8% today. That's kind of crazy. So you can see it's the BITI, which is the PowerShares reverse ETF of Bitcoin. An easy way to short Bitcoin is so. This is a daily chart. Look how deep into the LuxAlgo reversal waves BITI's candlestick is here. So very, very interesting stuff there. I can see Tim licking his lips over there, wanting to make some comments on that chart. What do you got?
Go show it again. See how open that little gap is. A lot of times you see that gap happen like that, and then it comes back and closes it. So yes, you're at the bottom of the reversal zone. Mm-hmm. And by the way, this chart looks bullish. I would say this is bullish. The problem is this is what shorts Bitcoin.
Yeah,
it likes to close that. Now shift over to my screen, and we're gonna go over here and look at the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. It did the exact opposite, which I don't have LuxAlgo up, but what we're looking at here is it opened the gap way up here, but it's already starting red. Is it just going to come here and refill this gap today before it does anything? Which I didn't grab my marker. It's moving as you say. Is this just going to refill this gap today, and then maybe it wants to make a decision down the road, go to the upside, maybe it comes to the downside. I don't know necessarily on that one, but whenever I see a big gap like that on a stock market open, I've been learning, don't get ahead of yourself. Actually, a lot of times when you see a big gap like that, it might be a good idea to go the opposite direction. So when that one, go buy that one on Grayscale, maybe short it and let it drop here a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting that you should bring up GBTC because we just released a video. I put a lot of time, a lot of effort into summarizing what's going on over at DCG, Digital Currency Group, and under their umbrella, all of the different crazy shenanigans that Cameron Winklevoss has revealed through his open letter on Twitter. Guys, if you do not know what I'm talking about right now, I strongly urge you, go to our channel after the stream and go watch that video. It's only like 8-9 minutes long, and I do what the commenters have said is a great summary of that whole debacle and what it could potentially mean for your portfolio. Guys, this is not a story to ignore. I'm being serious, completely serious, not just trying to get views on that video. It was
really
pretty
good.
crazy. Like there's some wild and wacky stuff that could happen if Grayscale has to sell their Bitcoin, and if it could potentially happen. There could be some big sell-offs, but we'll move on into continuing our market open here. So as you can see here is our metal markets. You can see that gold and silver are down modestly for the day, and steel up 1%. Big cap tech, pretty mixed here. Tesla making a bit of a rebound. We'll look at their chart. But before we do, Microsoft and Apple barely leading higher. So, kind of moving quick here, guys. I do want to look at Tesla's chart, though. Curiosity is getting the best of me. Maybe seeing a little bit of a breakout of this flat line of resistance here. Definitely getting a breakout. If that candle can close higher than 125, Tesla might be. And LuxAlgo giving it a buy rating today on the daily chart. This might be breaking news here that you're getting a buy rating from LuxAlgo on the Tesla daily chart. Pretty exciting stuff there. Bond yields down. Cannabis up pretty well. Mid-cap tech up. And your oil producers are going to be up too. So an interesting day. The biggest one that the market side say are reacting to is probably the World Economic Forum. Some of the headlines that might be trickling out of that, but also what's going on over at Disney is probably a pretty stale market force. But the biggest one is probably going to be that Bank of Japan rate decision. Tim, let's get into the Patreon stuff.
Yeah.
So we are really, really excited to bring you guys our Patreon membership tier, and we're going to do that today. We're going to reveal that for you. So I'll go over to my screen and show you exactly that.
It's going to be exciting here. So we start. Well, actually, go off your screen for just a second. Let's talk here for a second.
Let's do it. Let's talk. Let's chat it up.
We have been talking about doing this here for a little bit, so we wanted to let you guys know what was happening with this. We're about to be able to release this Patreon, which will give you access to a new Discord we are working in. The reason why it's not out already is because we didn't want to just release it bare bones and not be able to yet know everything we want to get accomplished in it and make sure everything works. So we've been working behind the scenes with a couple other people to make sure we get this working correctly. So hopefully, and I can't promise this, hopefully the end of this week, T-Shroom, is what we're thinking.
That's what we're thinking. That's what we're thinking. We wanted to align it with the World Economic Forum's Davos event. So,
yes,
not ideologically.
Yes, okay.
But at a time scale.
Some things I want to make sure everyone understands. So this is going to be awesome. Just so you guys know, the majority of what we're going to be doing with this money is actually improving our tech, improving the quality of what we're doing. Both T-Shroom and myself, we work other jobs. So we do not rely on any of this income from this channel to pay our bills, which is amazing. So this money will be going back out to help us produce better content. Down the road, I would love, and I think T-Shroom is saying, I would love to be able to go into doing content full time again. This would be amazing. Just not what's happening right now, but something that we're very convicted on. So T-Shroom and I are both Christians. We love Jesus. No matter what you guys believe, we want you guys to know who we are. We are not ashamed of who we are. We're not ashamed of our belief. And we prayed on this and thought on this and communicated and talked. And we said, you know what? We want to set the stage very, very early that the purpose of our channel, the purpose of Investing Bros, is not to better the lives of Tim Warren and Taylor Shrum. It is to help build a community together who want to change their lives for the better. And to do that and to make sure we're putting our money where our mouth is, no matter whether we make $1 or $1 million or $1 billion, 20% of anything that's given, we will not even consider belongs to the Investing Bros. That belongs to going back out to charity. So we're not talking about 20% like, oh, well, if we have some money going on and we paid all our bills, let's see if we have 20% left. No, before we look at any bills, before we look at purchasing any new equipment, before we consider hiring people, 20% of every single dollar that comes in from Patreon or Super Chats, or down the road we want to create some more courses, maybe get some merch, it will be going out to charities. And because we're Christians, we respond very heavily to, there is an instruction given to us by Jesus that no matter whether you believe in Jesus or not, you will agree this is a good thing. Jesus says the things that you're responsible to do in this world, and if you're not doing this, you are not living the way I told you to live, is to take care of the widows, the orphans, the poor, and the sick. So T-Shroom and I are in the process of looking for charities that represent all 4 of those needs that we want to partner with and be able to give money. And by the way, we'll give you guys links to that as well. So you can even skip the step of giving it to us and go ahead and give 100% to them. We might even have days or weeks where we say, you know what, guys, we're going to do 100% of our proceeds are going to charities this week. But I just want to make sure you guys understand that partnering with the Investing Bros is not just putting money in the pockets of Tim and T-Shroom.
That's right.
It's actually about building a community that believes that crypto can be a force for good in this world. Not just good for my family or T-Shroom's family or your family, but it allows us to have a place of financial freedom that we can actually accomplish the things that we are called to do so. So that was what I wanted to start with and let you guys know our hearts, what we're trying to accomplish here. Let's go back to the screen and show them what we have going on here. And we'll walk through. So there's going to be 3 different levels we have with Patreon. So we have our silver option over here on the left. That is $5 a month. And pretty much this is going to get you into the Discord. And we're going to be making some content, like he was saying earlier. Questions like, hey, can you take a look at Fibonacci on this to see what the price action will happen?
Exactly.
We'll make some content like that for our silver level. You'll be engaging with some phenomenal community members. We'll have some trading channels in there, stock channels. We'll look at technical analysis. We'll examine news. It'll be a great place to collaborate and learn together. We have our middle option, that gold package right there for $20 a month. So that'll get everything in the silver, but also on top of that, we'll also have a behind the scenes content. So some stuff that T-Shroom and I do behind the scenes. One of the things we talk about is maybe once a week, letting you guys come into our planning meeting for the show. So you'll see what it's like to plan one of these streams. Also, there'll be a lot of VIP rooms in there as well, and there'll be even more exclusive content that will be open for that version. The last one, the biggest one, the Diamond Package, $50 a month. You'll get everything from the other 2, as well as a monthly, we'll have weekly AMAs even for the gold. I forgot to mention that one. But we'll also have monthly biz dev meetings that we're going to invite you guys into. So when we're talking about what's the future of the channel look like, what is content we're trying to work on and think through how we can get done, maybe even do we need to make some hires? Like that's probably one of the hires we'd make to get stuff off our shoulders as an editor as soon as we're able to do so. So we're actually going to be completely transparent with you guys, let you guys come into that meeting and be a part of even helping us decide, hey, what's the next step for the Investing Bros? Because this is bigger than just Tim and T-Shroom. This is about the entire community. And there'll be a lot of other things happening there, but those are the big details. Did I leave anything out there, T-Shroom? Anything else I should mention?
No,
I think that's about it. Yeah,
silver, gold, and diamond. You know.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. You'll automatically be made a mod on YouTube, so that's another bonus of that diamond package. So these are just 3 different options, ways that you can support us here on the channel to create better content. You can support yourself by getting into that amazing community, and again, support something that really does put their money where their mouth is, and be able to give back as we grow in this crypto journey. That is what we have, and that's what's going to be coming to you guys very, very soon. So look forward to that. With that said, though, if you guys are saying, man, Tim, T-Shroom, I really want to be a part of this community, and I really want to support you guys, but financially, this is just not the right time for me. Believe me, I understand that. The best way you guys can continue to support us is to watch every single piece of content and to subscribe, and then maybe even tell your friends. Share this with your friends and family. Get them to subscribe. Comment below every single piece of content. Let us know some content you guys want to see here on the YouTube channel, and that is extremely helpful and beneficial to this channel because that will bring us more subscribers, more views. With more subscribers and views, we can get some quality expert sponsorships that monetize the channel as well, that will help us go bigger and better and help you in the long run. And with that being said, that is all we have for you in this episode, but look forward to this exciting stuff coming. T-Shroom, anything you want to say before I wrap it out?
Long live the king.
Long live the king. Boom. Well, guys, we will see you tomorrow, same time, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 10. With that said, have a great day.